Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer of words, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the DM Roundtable for September 2021. This is a chance for patrons and I to get together and discuss topics in tabletop RPGs, and by sharing our ideas, thoughts, and experiences, we can all become better DMs or GMs. The DM Roundtable discussions are open to all patrons at every level of patreon.com/RogueWatson. You don't even have to be an active participant. You can jump in here and lurk to your heart's content. We are glad to have you. This month's topic, as determined by the Patreon poll, is new players. The hobby is always going to have new players cycling in, yet D&D 5th edition has proven to be incredibly popular with a huge influx of first-time players, whether they are first to 5th edition, first to D&D, or even first to tabletop RPGs in general. How do we make these players feel welcome and ease them into our campaigns? Or what about those who have played before but are new to our table, our worlds, and our rules? Joining me for this month's DM Roundtable, we have the Fireworks Factory.
Hello.
Jordan.
Hey, guys.
Stan.
Hello.
Corey.
Hi, guys.
And Tiny.
Hello.
Tiny, I'm going to start with you, because it's been a while since I've heard you on a DM Roundtable.
Great. It's because I showed up last.
That's right. Give me your initial thoughts on, and if you have any experience with integrating new players at your table.
Yeah, I do. It's been a minute, but I have run a bunch of campaigns on Roll20, recruited new players, and have tips for recruitment and stuff. But probably the biggest thing I would say is that it's when you bring in a new player, you got to understand that this player may not work out for you and be open to give them the boot. So
do you do any kind of trial? Do you do like a trial period or something like that first?
Well, I kind of do. In running smaller, short, almost like one-shotty campaigns, just to bring in new people and play with them and get a feel for whether or not I like them.
Okay.
And then if I do, I invite them back. Or sometimes just going out and joining the campaign. I'll find some people that way too, other players. So it's just important that when you bring in a new player that you have an exit strategy.
That's all right. You took it to the extreme end of the pessimistic point of view, but that's an important one to have.
Yep.
Make sure you know when to drop them.
Yep.
Corey, please tell me your experiences with new players and advice.
Well, I'm trying to think. The last time I had a new player join a campaign was pre-COVID. And it was a guy I played with for years, about 20 years. One of his coworkers decided she'd try playing with us. But like I said, our group has been playing together since I was in high school, and that was an awful long time ago. And for a while, she showed up on the regular, and it seemed like she was having fun. And it turned out she was looking for more of a critical role experience than what my group was playing, and decided that my combat heavy several year campaign thing didn't really work for her, and she went and left. We tried to be inclusive, and we were disappointed when she left, but it was understandable. She was looking for something more acting and a little less combat heavy, and unfortunately, with our group being playing together for so long, it just didn't work out.
Sure. I mean, that's definitely, every group has the thing that they want to do, and different expectations exist. I wonder how many new players are being drawn in from specifically like Critical Role when they see, which people forget, those are, professional actors also. Most people sitting around the table, you can have the camaraderie and stuff, but you're probably not going to have the level of like dedication to role playing and everything that they do. But that being said, you can also run into tables and groups who, have entire sessions where they never roll dice, for example, and they love that. They just want to role play, they want to meet people, they want to talk. Or to the other extreme, you'll have people that just want to dungeon crawl, right? They just want to treat it like the war game simulator that it is. And neither of those are necessarily wrong or bad or correct. but certainly different expectations can exist, and that's a very good point to have. Is that's nobody's, I think, at fault there. Somebody had different expectations for what they thought the game was going to be, and you had a different one in mind, and that's probably part of the problem with the fact that I assume she joined in the middle of there wasn't like a session 0 or something there.
Yeah, in medias res. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of the campaign, and like I said, with a group of guys that I've been playing with for years and years, and she found out that her boss was playing D&D, and she had one way of playing D&D in her mind, and I think the combat heavy dungeon crawly group that we had just didn't fit her idea of how D&D should be and whatnot. So
sure, I hope she can find a group. Yeah,
sorry,
I said I hope she can find a group that's more to her liking.
Actually, I should ask him. I don't know if she did find another group or not.
Stan, what are your initial thoughts and experiences with new players?
Well, my experience has been people found out that I played way back in the early 80s, first and second edition, and walked away from it for 20 some years. And my life, I'm surrounded by a bunch of, with my career and everything, I'm surrounded by a bunch of 20 somethings. Found out I used to play. Hey, can you teach us how to play? Well, 5th edition came out. Apparently, I'm learning 5th edition now. And I've taught about 25 people how to play in the last 5 years.
Right, that'll make you real good with the rules.
Well, I start off kind of a little bit loose on the rules. I found it, especially with I call them kids, younger players. They're used to playing video games where everything is very tightly controlled. Mm-hmm. And you throw out, hey, what would you like to do? Well, what are my options? What would you like to do? And you start seeing heads explode, or some people lean into it and go, this is awesome. Mm-hmm. And they come up with some amazing creative stuff. So it's always telling them, it's like, you can do whatever you want. My job's just to enforce the consequences.
Do you enjoy that? Do you enjoy introducing all these new players? And it sounds like you enjoy imparting that, like basically teaching how to tabletop RPG in that case.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. The craziest one was I taught 9 people at one time.
Oh boy!
I had a group coming in. They came to my house right when things opened up from COVID. So I had 9 people in my house. They saw my game room and went, "Hey, what's this?" 3 hours later,
you have to paint
You
have to paint a picture of this game room for me.
I have a custom-made game table with a vault. It's about 4 foot by 7 foot. We call it the Larry Elmore exhibit. I've got my game map of the Sword Coast framed on the wall with about 9 or 10 different Larry Elmore prints, all signed and framed around me right now.
Is that
I love Larry Elmore.
Yeah, this is the fantasy artist who did Dragonlance covers and Forgotten Realms.
The Dragonlance book, the original Dragonlance books, and the Red Box. He's the reason I played D&D.
Gotcha. Yeah, very classic fantasy artwork.
Yep.
Good stuff.
I'm with you, Stan.
I love those nerd caves, man. Just walking in and just seeing those, they're always so cool.
It's a great recruiting thing for people to play. You come over to my house to hang out on the patio, and they see that they have to walk through the game room, and it's like, hey, you want to play?
Immersive, yeah. Jordan, tell me your experiences with new players.
I was new to D&D at 5e. So for me, I was a new player, and there was a lot of times where, as we were all kind of learning the rules, some of the people weren't happy with the way that things were going. So I was just like, well, screw it. I'll learn how to do it. And so I just dived head into the DM chair. And since then, whenever I get new players, coming from their perspective, I love the fact of having as many homebrew, what do you want to do sort of situations as possible. So when my players will run sideways off of the story, I think that's fun. When they want to create, when they're sitting there going, I want to be a succubus, And everyone around the table goes,
That seems
"I
like a
won't do
red
that."
flag.
I go, okay, well, let's go online and see if there was something from a previous edition or from a different RPG, and let's figure it out. So I think with new players, if you can get the type of people that are committed to show up and you can engage them in such a way that they want to come back because they're doing something that they haven't ever done before, whether it's fighting new monsters that you pulled out of the newest books, or whether it's introducing it to a sibling that has never done it before. Uh, Mark is in one of my games, Tiny is, and my brother showed
It's the
up to
Icewind
play for
Dale
the
game,
very
right?
first time. Yep, Icewind Dale. And when my brother was just barely starting, it was his first full length campaign that he was starting to do, and life caught up with him and he had to leave. But before that, everybody loved having him there because it was that new player experience where everything was new, brand new things would happen. He didn't know what the abilities of monsters were and
Mm.
everything else. And that's something that people tend to lose the longer they play. But if you can alter things or create new things, or you never just use what comes out of the box, you never lose that initial feel of surprise, trying to figure out a puzzle, whether that puzzle is how the heck do we beat this thing? This thing doesn't exist. What is this? So I've been trying to hold on to that as long as I can.
That's a really good point about new players having that fresh experience. I think metagaming could probably be a separate DM roundtable topic in of itself, but something that's very hard to separate from experienced players, even if your experience is only a couple of years, like mine is. You tend to just kind of know what a lot of monsters can do. I mean, and obviously there's, DMs can take a, goblin, give it a different weapon or give it different abilities or something, but you might have a general idea of like, how strong an orc is versus how strong a werewolf is versus how bad a gelatinous cube is and that kind of thing. Just, you can still role play your character like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to run up and try to stab it. But in their mind are thinking, oh, fuck, and it's, whereas a new player can genuinely have those fresh new experiences, and that can be very
Refreshing.
fun. Yes, very refreshing. I could definitely see that. Fireworks Factory, give me your experiences and thoughts on new players.
Well, my experience with it, I've tried to draw on my experience from being a teacher in the past. So trying to allow people to understand how this game works reminds me of doing that. So being patient with new players, whether it's understanding the rules or getting into the role playing, is something to keep in mind. I would also say try to keep things as simple as possible. If you try to inundate a new player with all of the rules and mechanics and everything, it could be, for one, very confusing for them, and also, potentially turn them off from the game. So trying to keep things as simple as possible, and also try to encourage them to describe what their character is doing. I find that tends to get them increasingly more involved in the game as it progresses.
During combat or just all the time?
All the time, depending on the, whether it's combat or exploration or things like that. Also having others who have played the game in the past, having at least one other player who has had experience playing the game in the party also is a big help, I find.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, teaching is a skill, and you would hope that DMs would be, or the GM would be adept at teaching, but some are better than others at teaching the game. Has anybody specifically used like the quick start rules and like to use 5th edition as an example, like Lost Mine of Fendover, like the starter or the Ice Spire one, like to specifically to teach new players?
Sure. I think it's when I was first trying to do like one shots, the goblin encounter and the very first one out of Lost Mines of Phandelver is a great example of, okay, this is how combat works. Very simple, very easy, very basic. But on top of that, once you start going into it, I like running both at the same time. Icewind Dale, not Icewind Dale, uh, Lost Mines of
Oh, the
Phandelver,
2-starter.
and yes, and the
Ice
Dragon
Spire.
Spire Peak,
Yeah.
because it gives them the option of saying, okay, these are the two different ways that we can run the story. We can have it be where it's very, very linear, or it's open world. And when it becomes open world, suddenly they are forced to make choices. So I've used it as a way to sort of teach a variety of different things.
And to find out with which method your players like, maybe too, because I know a lot of groups probably would enjoy an open world format where they could literally just, Skyrim style, go to different places. I don't think my group specifically would enjoy that. And plus, we play on a virtual tabletop, which means I can't just pull stuff out of my ass if they want to go different places. Like I got to sit there and spend, time putting maps together and putting tokens together. I almost think of it more like a Gloomhaven board game, basically, where it's like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this box, but you're still only using the stuff in the box. I'm not pulling things out of it. In terms of like, yeah, I'll give you some branching paths occasionally you can choose to do. And eventually maybe you'll have like in Gloomhaven, you might have 8 different scenarios you can play, but those are the ones you're not going to play. You're not going to turn around and just try to find another one. Although in that game you could randomly generate dungeon. But anyway, so yeah, having that choice would be interesting.
I learned how to play and DM using LMOP. So, I mean, it was a great adventure, and that's the one I recommend for any new player or new DM is go through that one.
I turned that into a 5-year campaign.
Wow.
Lost Mines of Phandelver, and then when Icefire came out, I started adding that to it, and the guys turned it into a barony, and we ran all just kept upscaling different side quests, those kind of things. And yeah, and then when my family started playing, I taught 5 of my family members how to play, and they're the junior varsity of that barony. So they're now they do missions that the barons are too high level to deal with these threats.
Yeah, they're the
so
B
you
team.
guys you guys go take care of this now.
I love it. That's cool. You got your own D&D cinematic universe where all the events exist together, but these are the smaller team. These are like the street level team.
I was actually running 3 different campaigns in the same timeline in the coast.
Wow.
Sword Coast. So they would hear like bards would come through town telling tales of what the other campaign was doing. So.
And yeah, I was gonna say you could like cross promote like events that are happening from one to another.
Mm-hmm.
That's
another campaign that I use to do with new players is Acquisitions Incorporated, and the reason why is because you wouldn't even need to do the campaign if you didn't want to, but there's a aspect to it in the book where it has unique roles, and those roles kind of explain what most teams would have as party dynamics. So there's someone that takes care of documenting everything. There's someone that takes care of the loot. There's someone that does something else. So depending on what level of experience they have, there's stuff out there to really kind of hit whatever you're looking for.
I had forgotten. I reviewed that the Ack Inc. 5e book years ago, and I remember really liking it. I've been a fan of that group, which is the one that probably most closely aligns like thematically and narratively to my group and player wise personalities. And I remember really enjoying that. I mean, I like that. I like their humor and that content. And yeah, that would. I remember really enjoying that book quite a bit. And what Jordan's talking about is the party roles, like the Documancer, like they'll have funny names, but essentially you're like working for a corporation, like a business, instead of like an adventurers guild or something. And it kind of divvies out all these roles to the players, which I believe. Do you actually have like mechanical abilities based on those things also?
Yes.
Yeah.
You get mechanical abilities, and you also get loot.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool feature.
And the loot actually levels up with you, which is a fun mechanic as well.
And that's a level. Is that a level 1 adventure also? Is that like Phandelver size?
It runs you right through Phandelver, actually.
Okay.
I believe it's 1 through, I think, about 8.
Yeah.
8 or 10. 10 might even be too high. I think it's probably 5 or 8. Yeah.
How many of you were DM'd before you played?
I did.
Not me. I was a player first.
Tiny, were you the one that said I did?
Yeah, I DM'd before I played.
Interesting. How did that experience go?
It was really rough, but
I assume the other players were all new as well, because why would you?
Yeah, and it was my family, and my kids were a lot younger then. I mean, literally like 4th and 5th grade and stuff. So
yeah,
it was rough in a variety of ways. But I just learned by watching a lot of videos of people DMing, even yours, of course, and so as you guys struggled through it, I mean, I encourage people to sit who are new to D&D to actually sit and listen through, your LMOP game, because you guys are going through and you're struggling the rules.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you learn too, is you're sitting at a table struggling through the rules, and those conversations are actually valuable if you're new to the rules. So
God, I still remember trying to come up with fog cloud rules that I just couldn't. I was just fucking making shit up, and it was so bad.
And you guys must have gone through the jump rules about 10 times in that campaign.
Oh my God.
How do you jump? What's the jump rules?
We still have to look up the jump rules. We're just idiots, I think. I don't know what it is.
Nah.
I need a sticky note somewhere. Which should be comforting to folks who are learning the game and intimidated by it. Like I'm raising my hand right now. I've been playing D&D, and it is all documented online for I don't know, 5 or 6 years now, and I forget rules all the time. Like I miss stuff all the time. I screw things up. Like it happens, and it's there's a lot going on. There's a lot to keep track of, and the important thing is everybody having fun. That's the biggest. And sometimes I might even miss a rule on purpose. Maybe I'm not running a monster like I should, or I'm not, doing all the things I should, because in the back of my head I'm thinking, oh, it's just gonna take up time. Let's just move ahead and go forward. In the sense of just keeping things fun and keeping things moving. I don't need to necessarily get in the nitpicky of everything all the time, which is liberating in a tabletop RPG where you can just adjudicate that. Were you saying, Corey? Or go ahead, Stan.
I was going to say, I started on the Red Box. So when that came out, I read it cover to cover 2 or 3 times, grabbed a bunch of my buddies, and I started DMing because that's how we learned to play. And I DM for about 4 or 5 years before I ever got to play the game as a player. So if you're going to play, Stan's DMing.
Yeah. I'm glad you finally got to play at some point, but that's funny. Well, I guess, that also means you were a very good DM, though, because when we wanted to rotate out, like, no, you can keep doing it.
I think it's because I own the books. I'm not sure.
That's also a very good point. Yeah, so I asked that because I obviously, everybody was a new player at some point. Technically, you played your first game at some point, but especially like in Stan's point of view, like by the time you were a player, you already absolutely knew, for the most part, what you were doing. Probably even more than a lot of players have been playing that long.
That's how I got to play, is that no one wanted to play a caster, because being a wizard or a cleric back in first and second edition was work. It wasn't fun for a lot of people. Well, you were squishy.
Yeah, here's your 2 hit points. Yeah.
So squishy.
Yeah.
Here's your 2 hit points in bathrobe. Good luck.
D4
Yeah.
die.
2 hit points, and I rolled my magic spell, and it's not anything useful. It's detect magic or something.
Yeah.
I cast magic missile. I'm done for the day.
I'm done for the day. Just cart me around, please.
And that's how I ended up playing. Is that none of the guys at the table wanted to play a caster, and we started playing Dragonlance. And it's like, I can play Raceland. So it's like, all right, guys, make you a deal. I'll play both Goldman and Raceland tonight. Someone has to DM, and I'll show you how to do this. After that, everybody wanted to play a caster.
Okay. So you had to teach everybody by being a player.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, so by the time I was a player for the first time, we'd already played through Lost Mine and Princes. And then by the time I was a player, I felt pretty confident to obviously be able to play the game and even multi-class, because all my characters have to be multi-class disasters. So I didn't necessarily have that perspective of being a new player, but I did have the perspective of being a new DM, which I was absolutely learning rules, as we were playing it on video for the most part. What else about new players? So let's talk more about introducing new players to the table. I know Tiny spoke about that. And
let me just put one little caveat on mine, is that there's a little difference between a new player with experience, who I won't hesitate to boot if they create like any kind of bad dynamic to the game. But a new player that is new to D&D, I would not do that.
That's a good point.
Unless there was like some other personal issue that they're bringing. But it's not out of impatience or anything like that I would boot a player because they're new to the game or learning.
I understood what you mean, but I'm glad you clarified.
Not a douche.
That's our motto. Obviously you want to have patience with people who are new, and sometimes they may understand the rules, but they may not be as comfortable with role playing or speaking up, and stuff like that. And maybe they want you to engage them a lot, or maybe they don't. There's people that show up to the first day of class and for a school analogy, and you don't want the fucking teacher to call on you, right? You just want to keep your head down and kind of figure things out for a while, and that's totally fine too. But there's a difference between that player and someone who comes in who definitely knows what they're doing, but you can tell right away like their style of play is not going to match what you're trying to do to your game. So does anybody have any I guess I don't know if I want to ask for horror stories, but any new players that came in that was a problem?
I try really hard to prevent that. To do a one shot, I almost don't care who I would do a one shot for. But to come into one of my established campaigns, that's almost sacred ground.
You gotta vet that shit.
I've turned down a lot of people to play at my table. You're someone I know to come into my table with my close friends. I don't want you ruining their experience.
What is your vetting process then?
It's normally someone I know that. We all know those people that have problems with authority or just really super flippant, rules mean nothing to them, whatnot. It's like you're coming in, it's like we want to have fun and whatnot. And I'm a rulings more than rules guy. But when I make a ruling, I don't want to spend 15 minutes with a rules lawyer arguing over what's on page 129. I have a very good DM that sits in two DMs that sit in some of my games. I don't have problems with them because it's my table. Yeah, it's my table, and they don't have a problem with it. and I turn around and I play in one of those guys' games. Don't have a problem with it because it's his table. And so I kind of try to front load it so I don't have problems. So far, it's worked.
Yeah, I mean, if you very much establish ahead of time and then have a pretty strict vetting policy, then I would imagine hopefully that would breed the fruit of not having assholes at the table.
I find most of my nightmares with new players aren't even really D&D related. It's like your technology sucks, your microphone sucks, or you are distracted, cutting in and out.
So this is specifically like playing online then?
Yeah, so this is more for playing online. And in my experience, tabletop is I'm really just kind of watching things as my kids are now DMing and bringing their friends over, and that's just I don't know. It's fun to watch them, but like attention spans are short, and they're talking over one another and stuff. So those are like a lot of the issues that I see with new players is just understanding that you can't like talk over each other, simple things, and get a good microphone and internet stuff.
A lot of it maybe because there's especially if you're playing online, there's no barriers between like a 19-year-old playing with a 56-year-old or something. And I don't want to be ageist or anything, but that can obviously those people can certainly get along and play together. But there may be differing expectations and maturity levels also. And obviously, you can have somebody who's 40 and has the maturity of a 12-year-old. And that
those 11-year-olds can be scary, dude.
Yeah,
that's come up even at our the game that I'm currently running, where there's been times where I'll have to talk to people outside of game because I added a new person in. They're younger. The group that we're playing with is a little bit older, and so I'll have to talk to them afterwards and be like, "Hey, I know your attention span's low. I know you got all these different things that are going on. Don't be playing a video game while we're playing the game."
Yeah, that's an uncomfortable conversation.
It can be, but if you're
I know your attention span's low. I'm not even sure how to tell somebody that.
Well, just like that, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's depending on how things go, I typically if it's someone that I've never played with before or I don't know them at all, period, then I have some sort of vetting process similar to what the guys here have talked about. If it's someone that I do know that I need more people at the table, and this person I've played with in the past, then sometimes I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes, if it's the wrong party composition, it doesn't matter if I've played with them in the past, it's the wrong party. Because it has to be the right group dynamic. And sometimes not everyone you've played with in the past matches up with every group.
Yeah, that's true. I think that takes a very mature viewpoint to look at it too. Is you may say like, hey, I even like this person, but I don't think their personality or their way of playing would necessarily mesh with this group because this person is more into cutting jokes and fooling off on their phone and they're still fun at the table, whereas this other group is like hardcore role play and they want to keep track of their their rations and their wounds and all this kind of stuff. And you can see where like, man, even though I like person A, I don't think they would necessarily work with group B, which could be a tricky conversation to have with person A also. It's like, hey, I want to join your game, and you're like, I don't think you do. Yeah. Yeah, that could be tricky. I'm not good with confrontation like that, so I don't know if I would even be able to have that conversation. Thankfully, I don't have to because I can play with my same group.
Yeah, unfortunately, whatever. I don't shy away from that kind of stuff. So if if that is the case, I just sit there and go, hey, you know what? If I start another game, I'll let you know, and we'll include you in that one.
I
But
think
with
it's
this one,
sorry,
makes
yeah.
sense.
I think it's a good skill to have because I mean, obviously you want to be. It's the boss bringing the employee into their office and having that frank conversation, and you can have that conversation and still be respectful and get along with the person, but also you're still laying it down and saying, hey, this is how I really feel, and this is the situation that you need to be aware of. I think that is way. I mean, you go to all these Reddit threads on D&D, and all of them have these. Half of them are just horror stories about players and stuff, and all the solutions are just like, you got to fucking talk to this person. Like, you just got to have that conversation, and it sucks, but you do, and you do. But that's one side of the point, and the other side is you can have that conversation, but also still be, respectful with that person.
Cordial.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to just come in there and say, like, look, you're fucking out, you're fucking things up. Instead, you can be like, hey, I think you're a cool person, but here's what the group is really into, what they're doing, and I'm not sure if you're into that, and maybe sometimes I'm talking like I have any experience with this, and I don't. Sometimes the person may be receptive to that change, and maybe they're like, oh yeah, I see what you're saying. I can look into that, and you can evaluate that. I'm literally thinking of this like a boss employee relationship at this point. Or maybe this
like
doesn't
this.
happen.
Like because I am new to D&D, new to Forgotten Realms, new to 5e.
Yeah,
new
me
to,
too.
New to
Absolutely.
The whole thing. My play style as a DM is very much more of, I'm going to pull this from grim fairy tales, from science fiction, from references from all the pop and fantasy genres that I can pull from, but it might not be perfectly aligned to what someone who really understands the lore of the game
Like Stan.
appreciates. So for me, I'm not the best DM for certain groups, and sometimes that conversation has come up as well where I didn't cut it.
Yeah.
And it was a play style choice of, they didn't enjoy how I was running the game, and that's fine. Not everybody's DM is.
So a player came
perfect.
to you as the DM?
Well, it was more of like, we were trying to figure out kind of how to make things work, and how to make things appropriate, and I still had to balance things for the whole party. And at the end of the day, eventually there was a situation where they just up and left. And for me, like, I reached out later and was like, hey, you're always welcome back. But outside of that, like, I had to accept the fact that I wasn't gonna meet his expectations.
Yeah.
And vice versa.
Yeah. I mean,
So
it happens.
it's new players, whether they're experienced like that or whether they're brand new at the other end. Like, both sides, the DM will make or break the group because they're setting the cadence for what the game's going to be like.
Sure.
Yep.
That's a good point especially for new players, is you are setting the expectations. The other thing of talk to people is session 0. I like to try to play actions have consequences. I repeat that always. You can do almost anything you want. My job's to try not to say no. But my other job is also, I'm gravity. So, so you can try whatever you want. I'm just going to force the consequences.
Yeah.
And I also try, so actions have realistic consequences. So, you insult a noble, you may have an assassin in your bedroom 3 days from now.
So how long does it take you, Stan, before you kill a new player's character? Like session 2, 3? Surely not 1, right?
I've only killed off 1 PC. I set a trap, and oh my goodness, did they fall for it? And it worked. It worked flawlessly. It did what it wanted, and I whacked their cleric. And they had and he got killed by a white, which means 24 hours later he's coming back as a zombie.
Ooh.
And they passed the religion check, and they realized, oh, and there's no way, we're 3 days from town. Oh, geez, there's no way to bring him back. So that's how they lost their cleric. But they were level 5 when that happened.
So I bring that up because my
I'm not going to whack a level 1. I'll answer the question.
My brother, and this guy, I mean, this unfortunately a kid. I mean, it was me and my sons and their friend. My brother was DMing, and it was Under Mountain, and this kid just went off on his own and got killed like I think it was the second session, and he was brand new, and I felt bad because. And you could see it afterwards, like he was just so stunned that his character died, and then he didn't play anymore after that.
Oh,
so
no.
That's like, I feel bad. Like that was his
experience.
That was his experience. So like in hindsight, I just think like you got to pull punches to some degree with new players, or you can totally turn them off the game. And I feel like that is like, as a DM, I feel like that's a sin.
Young players too,
especially young players. So that it's painful for me to think about that. But whether young or old, like pull some punches. Don't be like Jordan and killing them off in the first couple sessions.
At least introduce them to the song.
Don't torture them. Cut their fingers off.
Unless you're playing like a roguelike.
Dumb Ways to Die. At least introduce them to that. So they hear the song "Dumb Ways to Die."
Yep, I know the song.
Yep.
But I like what I'm sorry if that was Corey. I think you said it, or maybe it was Stan, about like I'm gravity, like having that conversation with them, and your actions have consequences. I think that's really important for a new player to hear, because you want it to, you don't want them to have this like new person armor where they're untouchable just because they're new. But
this isn't an anime where you're a main character and you have plot armor.
Yeah, but you also want to, realize as a DM that maybe they're just have no idea what they're doing, and lighten up the consequences a little bit. Don't just straight up kill them.
And might not know the full consequences. Like, you could throw like a dragon in there, and you're like, you think it's a role playing encounter, and the one character just keeps on antagonizing. You're like, all right, look, the dragon just like flicks a nail and knocks you backwards, and you take a bunch of damage. That gets the I think the message across, versus, all right, the dragon reaches over and bites your head off, you're gone, give me your character sheet. Like there's a way to handle that situation, I think.
Yep.
All right, are we up to our final thoughts on using new players and how to handle them in our D&D games? We're going to go in reverse order this time, although since Corey, I think you changed your name, you're at the top now, so I'm going to use you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, now you've won the award of going first for final thoughts on using new play. Yeah.
Well, I don't have a lot of experience with new players, like I said. The last one was several years ago.
Have you also been blessed with the same group to play with?
Yeah, so it's been the same core group of guys since since I was 16. So I'm 45 now. So we've been playing together a long time.
Hashtag goals.
Yeah, we lose people now and then, which is why we try out new people, but it doesn't work all that well. Another one of my newer trying to teach people playing Dungeons and Dragons with my two oldest sons. I tried playing with them and one of their cousins on a camping trip, and they seemed to take to it, but I don't think they liked me being the DM very much. My sons are still quite interested in Dungeons and Dragons, but they don't have a lot of interest in me running the sessions. My oldest son played through school. There was a Dungeons and Dragons group at school, and he quite likes the sessions that are in person. But when we switched to the Roll20 for the COVID compilation, he's not interested anymore. He prefers the in-person style. Whereas my youngest son has a group that plays also through the school, and they're exclusively Roll20, and he quite enjoys it. So, I mean, it's a brand new world out here with being able to play with whoever you want, whenever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of experience with new people, but interesting.
I'm in the same boat. Yeah. Fireworks Factory. Give me your final thoughts on new players at the table.
For new players at the table, whether they are new to the game or just new to the party, bottom line for both would be being patient. So whether it's for those who are new to the game, trying to understand the rules or just being comfortable with role playing, or those that are new to the party, just understanding how they play the game, how they see the game, being patient with both of those categories, I think, is the biggest final thought that I can think of.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that patience should definitely be a part of a DM's repertoire, but especially with newer players involved. Jordan, final thoughts on new players?
If they're new, give them the full experience. Sure, pull punches for the beginning, but read the room and see what they're comfortable with. And when you're helping them build their character, which can be intimidating by itself, ask them questions of what they think their character's like so that you can feed into that as you're doing your prep. That way you can get them to come back and back because you have a better understanding of what they're envisioning. That both experienced and brand new alike. So that one-on-one communication with players when they're new to your group is so important both in and outside of game.
Yeah, for sure. Very good. Stan, final thoughts on new players?
Set and manage expectations. It's that session zero thing of this is what the campaign's about. This is the way I run a table. These are the things I need from you. These are the things you can expect from me.
Good point. Expectations are extremely important because every group is different, and they're, especially with the example of the person coming in from Critical Role, from watching those, may have expectations one way versus somebody who was watching, a hardcore combat simulator or whatever in between. Through no fault of anyone else's, just their expectations are going to be far different than what they're going to see at that table. Tiny, you have the honor of being the final of the final thoughts.
Yeah, I guess I'll end where I started. Is even with a brand spanking new player, you give them time, you be patient, but at some point, if it's a constant headache, they're not getting it, technology isn't working for them, things like that, you gotta be kind of humble in a way and be like, because it's not working for you, and if it's not working for you, then it's ruining your experience, and that ruins it for everybody else. So you gotta lovingly give them the boot if it's just not working out, and be open to that. So
excellent point.
Give it more time.
Yeah, I'm glad all of you were here to discuss that, because I don't have a whole lot of experience using new players except when I was also a new DM. But everything here sounds extremely well thought out and well reasoned. Having patience with new players, being able to have those one-on-one conversations, being able to vet people maybe beforehand to make sure they would fit at your table, but also being welcoming with them for the purposes of using like a one shot or something, just so you can see like how are you, even though I really like you as a person, maybe we'll see how we match up with this kind of a style versus how I want to run the game versus how you want to play the game, kind of a thing. And we even talk about something like maybe you could help recommend certain classes, for example, for D&D 5e, in terms of these classes might be a little more user friendly or intuitive than other classes. Maybe if somebody doesn't want to worry about the difference between a long rest or a short rest, something, then don't worry about short rest classes. Or if somebody doesn't want to cast spells, then there's good classes. I don't have to worry about that. So
That's an excellent point.
yeah, there's a lot of classes I wouldn't necessarily run it of completely new players, for example, but I think 5e is remarkably well created and crafted for new players. It's very intuitively designed. It doesn't have a lot of, tricky modifiers to worry about. The character sheet's pretty well laid out. Like advantage, disadvantage is a very easy system in terms of you just roll or re-roll. Inspiration is great. Like 5e has so many good tools to make it welcoming for new players that it's part of the reason it's been so successful. And I think that, as DMs, we can certainly help foster that growth and invite people to the table while at the same time making sure that they can fit at our tables.
Yep.
All right. I think that will do it for this month's DM Roundtable. Thank you to the Fireworks Factory, Jordan, Stan, Corey, and Tiny for joining me for this month's DM Roundtable. And thank you to all the wonderful patrons. Shoutouts to Platinum patrons Joe, Will, Tiny Dancer, Wizard Princess, Christopher, Thomas, Captain Mike, Adam, Aiden, Stan, Nathan, Alex, Chad, Alexander, Dan, Cam, and the Quizats, Hatterack. And gold patrons RPG Papercrafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Dead Lizard, Lounge, Sam, Aras, Lumpy Spuds, Drome, Scalinia, Nick, Farty Mick, Butterpants, Blood Angel, Veronis, Baboon, Nathan, Fast Like a Tortoise, and James. Thank you all very much for your support. Hope to see you all next month for some more DM Roundtablins.
See you later.
See you.
Bye.